How does a man lose his home, his marriage, and his savings in one clean week and still get blamed for it? Why would my wife say my rich cousin was what she deserved, like I was a mistake she finally corrected? And how did I end up as the beneficiary of $44.8 million? Right before an investigator told me the report did not match the story I was given? My name is Nolan Pierce. I am 49 years old. I work in logistics. I move things from one place to another. I plan routes, solve delays, and keep people calm when they are not calm. That is my job. That calm also became my habit at home. For years, my home was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was just slowly turning into a place where my voice did not matter. Maris was my wife. She was 44. She liked nice things, clean lines, bright rooms, and people who looked sure of themselves. When we met, she told me she liked that I was steady. She said I made her feel safe. I believed her. I worked hard. I paid the bills. I fixed what broke. I took the late shifts. I did not complain much. At first, it felt normal. I thought marriage was like work. You keep showing up. You do your part. You do not make small problems into big problems. But over time, I started noticing something. Maris was not asking me for decisions. She was informing me after decisions were made. It started with simple things. A new couch arrived, and I learned about it when the delivery truck was already in the driveway. A subscription showed up on our bank app, and she told me it was cheaper that way. A weekend plan appeared on our calendar, and she said she already told people we were coming. When I asked why she did not tell me earlier, she would say she did not want to bother me. She would say I was busy. She would say she handled it. She acted like she was helping me, but it felt like she was removing me. I tried to be fair. I told myself she was organized. I told myself she liked taking care of details. I told myself it was not personal. Then Ronan started showing up more. Ronan was my cousin. He was older than me by a few years. He had money. Not normal money. Big money. He owned property. He invested in companies. He spoke like he was always on a stage. He was friendly in a way that made people lean in. He made jokes that sounded harmless, but the joke always placed him above someone else. Ronan and I grew up in the same family circles. When we were younger, he was the one with the new shoes and the loud laugh. I was the one who helped clean up after the family dinners. I never hated him. I just always knew our roles. When Ronan started calling Maris to check in, it looked innocent. He asked about her work. He asked about her hobbies. He asked if she needed help with anything. Maris would smile when his name came up on her phone. At first, she told me it was nice. She said Ronan understood quality. She said he had good taste. She said he gave good advice. She said it was good to have family with resources. I remember one evening at our kitchen table. I had a folder open from work. I was planning a shipment schedule for the next week. Maris was scrolling on her phone. She was not looking at me. She was looking past me. She told me Ronan had invited us to a family gathering at a rental hall outside the city. She said it was a holiday event. She said the family wanted to see us. She spoke like it was already decided. I asked what day. She said Saturday. I told her I had planned overtime that morning. She said she already told them we were coming. I said I could try to switch. I said I would handle it. That was my pattern, and I would adjust. I would make it work. On the drive there, Maris was quiet. She fixed her hair in the mirror. She checked her phone again and again. She wore a new coat. It was a style she did not use to wear. It looked expensive. I did not ask where it came from. I was tired of sounding suspicious. The rental hall was bright and warm. There were string lights. There was music playing low in the background. People laughed in clusters. I could smell food and perfume. Everyone looked ready for photos. Maris walked ahead of me, not far, but enough. She moved like she knew exactly where she was going. When we entered, her face changed. She smiled wider. She stood taller. She became someone else. Ronan was near the center of the room. He was talking to a small group. He wore a fitted jacket. His watch caught the light when he moved his hand. People listened to him like he was a host, even though it was not his event. When he saw us, he opened his arms like we were old friends, not family. He greeted Maris first. He gave her attention like it was a gift. He asked her how she was doing. He complimented her coat. He told her she looked like she belonged in a magazine. Then he looked at me. He smiled. He asked how work was. He said he hoped I was not working too hard. He said I always looked tired. He said I should let people take care of me for once. He said it like kindness. But the room heard the message. I nodded. I told him work was fine. I said I was glad to see everyone. I kept my tone even. Ronan guided Maris through the room like she was his guest. He introduced her to people I did not know. He mentioned her interests, like he had studied them. He spoke about trips and events and restaurants. He spoke in a way that made it sound normal that he and Maris shared a world. I stood beside them and felt like furniture. At one point, someone asked Maris how she and I were doing. Maris smiled and said we were fine. She said I was steady. She said I was predictable. She said sometimes steady was nice, but sometimes a person wanted more. She looked at Ronan when she said it, like she was checking his reaction. Ronan laughed softly. He said people deserved more than survival. He said people deserved comfort and beauty. He said life was too short to settle. I remember the words because of the way they landed. Not like a fight, like a decision already made. Later, there was a moment when people gathered for a toast. Someone clinked a glass. Phones came out. The room became a small stage. Ronan stood close to Maris. I stood on the other side, slightly behind, without meaning to. The person speaking talked about family. They talked about fresh starts. They talked about people finding the life they were meant for. Several eyes moved toward Maris and Ronan, not toward me. Maris did not look embarrassed. She looked pleased. She looked like she had been waiting for that attention. When we left the rental hall, Maris walked ahead again. In the car, she did not talk about the people. She did not talk about the toast. She looked out the window. She checked her phone. When I asked if she had a good time, she said it was fine. Then she said she was tired of pretending. She said she wanted a different life. I kept my hands on the steering wheel. I told her I was listening. I told her we could talk when we got home. At home, she did not go to the kitchen. She did not sit down. She stood in the living room like she was waiting for a ride. She told me she had been unhappy for a long time. She told me Ronan understood her. She told me he could give her what she deserved. I asked what that meant. She said she deserved security, comfort, and respect. She said she deserved a man with presence. She said she had carried our life on her back, even though I knew I had paid for most of it. I did not raise my voice. I asked if she was leaving. She said yes. She said she was done. She said it was not a debate. I asked where she would go. She said Ronan had a place. She said it was already arranged. She said she did not want to drag it out. Then she told me she needed space and she needed the house handled in a clean way. She said it was better if I stayed somewhere else for a while. She said she did not want stress. She said she wanted peace. I looked at her and realized she was speaking like a manager, not a partner. I asked if she wanted me to pack a bag. She said she already packed some things. She said I could take what I needed later. She said we could keep it civil if I cooperated. I went to the bedroom. I opened the closet. Half of it was already empty. Drawers were already cleared. It was not a sudden choice. It was a plan. I came back out with a small bag. Maris was on her phone. She said Ronan was outside. I did not hear his car at first, because my ears were ringing with quiet. I walked to the front door. I stepped onto the porch. The air felt colder than it should have. Ronan stood by the driveway near a dark vehicle with tinted windows. He did not look surprised to see me with a bag. He looked prepared. He told me he hoped I would take this like an adult. He told me Maris needed a fresh start. He told me he would make sure she was taken care of. He said it as if he was doing me a favor. I nodded. I told him I understood. That was the only safe sentence I had in that moment. Maris walked past me without touching my arm. She did not look at my face. She moved like she was late for something important. Ronan opened the car door for her. She got in. Ronan looked at me again and said we should talk later about practical details. Then he drove away. I stood on the porch for a long minute. The house behind me was quiet. The lights were on. The place looked normal from the street, but it did not feel like mine anymore. I went back inside to pick up my work laptop. I walked to the kitchen and saw papers on the counter. Not documents laid out for me to read, just scattered pieces of mail and envelopes like someone had been searching. I took my laptop and my bag and walked back out. I tried my key in the front door, out of habit. It turned, but it felt stiff. I told myself it was just my hand shaking. I got into my car and sat there. I did not start the engine. I watched the house. I watched the windows. I thought about where I could go. I thought about my job in the morning. I thought about how fast a life could be moved around without asking the person living it. Then my phone vibrated in my hand. It was a bank alert. I opened it and saw multiple transfers listed close together. The amounts were not small. The descriptions were short and clean, like routine activity. The timestamps were recent. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned, and the quiet inside my car became a different kind of quiet. The next morning, I sat in my car outside the bank before it opened. I kept reading the alert lines until they stopped looking real. The transfers had names I did not recognize. Some looked like normal payments. Some looked like internal movements. All of them came from the same place we used for bills. I had always treated money like oxygen. I did not talk about it much. I made sure it was there. I kept the lights on. I kept food in the house. I handled repairs before they became disasters. I thought that was what a steady man did. Maris treated money like a mirror. She watched how it made her look. She watched what it unlocked. She watched what it said about her worth. When she was younger, she said she hated that. She said she wanted a simple life. She said she did not care about labels. I believed her too. In the early years, she laughed at my habits. She said I kept receipts like a careful old clerk. She said I tracked dates like a machine. I told her it was how my mind worked. At work, one missing number can ruin a week. I did not want that at home. The first time I noticed something shifting, it was small. She started using the word deserve more. She said she deserved nicer dinners. She said she deserved better trips. She said she deserved to feel proud when she walked into a room. I would nod and ask what she wanted. I would say we could plan. I would say we could save. Then Ronan started appearing in those sentences. She said Ronan understood investment. She said Ronan knew the right people. She said Ronan said I was too cautious. She said Ronan said life did not reward caution. She said Ronan said comfort was a basic right. I did not argue with Ronan directly. I did not want family drama. I had seen how family drama spreads. One comment becomes 10 versions in 10 mouths. I thought staying calm was safer. But staying calm did not stop the pressure. It only made it easier for them to push. Ronan began calling me more too. He said he wanted to help us level up. He said he had ideas. He said he could introduce me to people who could improve my career. He said he respected hard work. He said he liked a man who did not complain. He also made sure I felt like I was always being measured. He asked what I earned. He asked how much we saved. He asked what our long-term plan was. He said questions like that were normal for responsible adults. He said he was only looking out for Maris. I remember one dinner at a restaurant Maris picked. It was louder than the places we used to go. The menu had no prices. The chairs were uncomfortable in a fancy way. Ronan showed up after we ordered. Maris acted like it was a happy surprise. I did not believe it. I did not call it out either. Ronan talked about property and travel and positioning. He said people saw value in someone who moved with confidence. He looked at Maris when he said it. He said she had a presence. He said she was not meant to shrink. He said she was meant to be seen. I sat there and listened. I nodded at the right times. I kept my face calm. Inside, I felt like I was watching someone build a story while I was still living the old one. After that, I noticed a new pattern at home. Maris stopped asking me about schedules. She started telling me when I should be available. She stopped saying we. She started saying I need. There were nights when she came home late and said she had been with friends. When I asked which friends, she said I did not know them. She said it was not important. She said I should trust her. Then she would walk away like the conversation was a burden. I did trust her, at least at first. Trust was my default setting. I had no interest in policing someone. I believed adults could speak honestly if they were treated with respect. But respect was not what she wanted anymore. She wanted a ladder. Ronan kept placing small hooks into our life. He offered to help with bills, but only if he could advise us on our accounts. He offered to recommend a better bank service, but only if we simplified how we managed money. He offered to help Maris with her career contacts, and he liked to say it was because he believed in her. I remember a day she asked me to sign something for a household update. She said it was a routine thing. She said the bank suggested it. She said it would make things easier if something happened to either of us. She said it was just being responsible. I read a few lines, then she took the papers back and said she was in a rush. She said we could do it later. She smiled like it was nothing. That should have bothered me more than it did. But I was tired. I was working long weeks. I was trying to keep my job stable. I was trying to keep our house stable. I kept choosing peace in the moment instead of clarity. Over time, Maris started speaking to me like I was slow. Not directly, but in little corrections. She would say I did not understand how things worked. She would say I was from another era. She would say I did not know how to play the game. I would ask her what game she meant. She would say it was the game everyone played to get ahead. She said I was too honest and too simple. She said the world did not reward simple. The part that still stays with me is how calm she was when she said those things. She was not angry. She was not emotional. She was almost clinical, like she was explaining why an old tool was being replaced. When I finally tried to talk about us in a serious way, she acted tired. She said I was making it heavy. She said I always turned things into work. She said she wanted a partner who could lead. I asked what she meant by lead. She said she wanted a man who walked into a room and people noticed. She said she wanted someone who could make decisions fast. She said she wanted to feel proud standing next to him. I asked if she felt ashamed standing next to me. She did not answer that directly. She said she loved me in her own way, but love was not the same as being satisfied. Then she did something that hurt in a quieter way. She started talking about me to other people as if I was not there. At family gatherings, she would describe our life like a project she was managing. She would say I was good at routine tasks. She would say I was reliable. She would say I was not the kind of man who surprised anyone. People would laugh in a polite way. I would smile too, because it was easier than being the difficult one. When Maris left that night and Ronan drove her away, I stayed in my car a long time. I did not want to walk into the house again. I did not want to see the empty closet space. I did not want to touch the counter where the scattered mail sat. But I did go in because my work laptop was there and because I still thought like a responsible adult. I told myself I had to function. Then I saw the bank alert. That alert was like a door opening into a colder room. I did not call Maris right away. I knew how that call would go. She would say I was accusing her. She would say I was emotional. She would say it was all handled. She would say I should not make it worse. So I drove to the bank when it opened. I waited in line like everyone else. I kept my voice low and calm at the desk. I said I needed help understanding recent activity. I said I believed there were transfers I did not approve. The bank worker was polite, but careful. She said she could not discuss some details without identity steps. She said some changes were authorized under our account structure. She said if I wanted to dispute anything, there was a formal process. She said the bank would need documentation. I asked what authorized meant. She said it meant the system saw permission. She said it did not mean the system knew my feelings. She said it only knew what was filed. That sentence stayed with me. The system did not know my feelings. After the bank, I drove to Ronan's neighborhood. I did not go inside. I stopped at the entrance. A guard booth sat near the gate. I saw clean landscaping and long driveways behind it. I saw the kind of place where problems were kept out. I called Maris. She answered after several rings. Her voice sounded calm, like she had rehearsed it. I told her I had bank alerts and I needed to understand what happened. I said I was not yelling. I said I wanted facts. I said I needed to know where my money went. She told me I should stop calling it my money. She said it was marital money. She said she had to protect herself because I might become difficult. She said Ronan advised her to take steps quickly to keep things clean. I asked if she moved funds without talking to me. She said she did what she had to do. She said I was not thinking clearly. She said I should accept that the marriage was over and focus on moving on. Then she said something that made my face go hot. She said Ronan was taking care of her now. She said he was giving her stability. She said I never understood what she needed. I asked her if she planned to return the money. She did not answer that directly. She said lawyers would handle it. She said we would do it properly. Then she ended the call. I sat there at the gate and watched cars enter and leave. I watched the guard wave people through. I realized I could not follow her into that world with feelings. I would have to follow with proof. That day, I went to a diner and sat in a booth in the back. Tomas met me there after his shift. Tomas was not family. He did not care about status. He cared about basic fairness. He looked at my face and asked what happened. I told him Maris left. I told him Ronan was involved. I told him money moved overnight. Tomas did not panic. He asked simple questions. He asked when it started. He asked what accounts were joint. He asked what documents I had signed recently. He asked if I had copies. I told him I did not have copies of everything. I told him Maris handled some paperwork. I told him I trusted her. Saying that out loud made me feel foolish, but I kept my voice steady. Tomas said something I needed to hear. He said calm men often get used because people mistake calm for permission. He said I needed to stop trying to win their approval. He said I needed to protect myself with structure. He did not tell me to do anything reckless. He did not tell me to cause a scene. He just told me to treat it like a work problem. He told me to build a timeline and keep records. That night, I did not go back to the house. I drove to a cheap motel lot and stayed in my car. I reclined the seat. I used my jacket as a blanket. I did not sleep much. I kept replaying Maris's words. I kept seeing Ronan's calm smile. I kept thinking about how quickly they turned a life into a transaction. In the morning, I went to the public library. I sat at a computer and opened a blank document. I typed dates. I typed times. I typed every moment I could remember that mattered. I typed every strange comment. I typed every routine update and every new purchase and every sudden plan. I did not feel dramatic while I did it. I felt focused, like I was finally doing the job I should have started months ago. By the end of that day, my hands were steady again. I did not feel hopeful, but I felt clear. I did not know the full shape of what they did yet, but I could see the outline. And for the first time since Maris walked past me on the porch, I stopped thinking about what she wanted. I started thinking about what the records would say. 3 days after Maris left, I drove back to the house in daylight. I did not go at night. I did not want anything that looked secret. I wanted everything plain and clear. I parked across the street like a visitor. I sat in the car and watched my own front door. The porch light was on in the middle of the day. A new camera was angled toward the driveway. It had not been there before. I notice small changes like that because my work trains my eyes. If something moves, there is usually a reason. I carried one empty box and my laptop bag. I wanted to take a few items that mattered, plus the folders I kept in my home office. I told myself it would be simple. When I walked up, my key did not turn. It stopped hard, like it had never belonged there. I tried again slowly. Same result. I did not push or slam. I stepped back and looked at the lock. It looked new. I knocked once and waited. No answer. I knocked again and waited longer. Through the window, I saw movement. I saw a shadow pass. Then the blinds shifted slightly and settled again. Someone was inside. They chose not to open. A neighbor across the street was watering plants. She kept looking over. She did not wave this time. Her face had the careful look people get when they think they are watching a private problem. I took my phone out and sent Maris a short message. I wrote that I needed my documents and a few personal items. I wrote that I would be quick and calm. I wrote that I would leave after. She replied with one sentence that felt like a wall. She said I was not welcome at the house right now and that I should go through the proper process. Proper process. That was the new language. It sounded clean. It sounded reasonable. It also sounded like someone else wrote it. A few minutes later, a vehicle pulled into the driveway. Ronan stepped out, like he had been waiting nearby. He did not look surprised to see me. He walked toward me with his hands open at his sides, like he was there to help. He told me Maris needed space and that I should not make this harder. He said the house was not a place for tension. He said I could request items later, the right way. He said he would make sure things stayed orderly. He did not raise his voice. He did not have to. His calm was a kind of control. I told him I understood. I told him I would leave. I did not argue on the porch. I did not want a scene for the neighbor to report to the group chat. I went back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the new camera. I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, not panic, just a clean understanding. They were not separating from me. They were removing me. That afternoon, I went to the county records office. The lobby smelled like paper and floor cleaner. People sat in plastic chairs holding folders. A screen on the wall showed numbers. No one looked at anyone else for long. It was a place where feelings did not count, only steps. When my number was called, I walked up to the desk and asked how to check property records. I used the address. I used my full name. I kept my tone steady. The staff member did not react to my emotions because I did not show them. She told me which terminal to use and how to search. She spoke like she had done this 1,000 times. I sat at a public computer and typed the address. At first, I thought I made a mistake. The record looked different than I expected. I refreshed the page. I checked the spelling. I checked the unit number and the parcel number. It was the same house. The record showed a recent change. My name was still connected in old entries. But the current entry showed a new structure. It was not just Maris. There was another name connected to a business entity. It looked like a company name, the kind that hides people behind letters. I printed the summary page. I did not feel dramatic. I felt cold in a simple way, like someone turned down the heat. I walked back to the counter and asked what a person does if they believe a change was filed under pressure or without clear consent. The staff member said they could not give legal advice. She said I could request certified copies. She said if I had questions, I should speak to an attorney. I asked how long it takes for changes to appear in the system. She said it depends, but filings post when they are recorded. She said the system shows dates, not motives. Dates. That was something I could work with. I paid for copies. I did not hold them up in the air like proof. I put them in a plain folder and wrote the date on the front with a pen. I wrote the address under it. I wrote one word at the bottom, timeline. Then I went to the bank again. This time I asked for a specialist. I asked for someone who handles disputes and account authority. I did not accuse anyone by name. I said I needed to understand the structure and what permissions existed. The specialist explained that joint accounts can be moved by either party, depending on how they are set up. She explained that some account settings allow quick transfers without a second confirmation. She explained that if I believed there was misuse, the bank could open a review. She also explained that I needed to move fast because time changes what can be reversed. I asked what documents I should request. She gave me a list. She said statements, transfer details, authorizations, and any recent changes to contact info. That last part hit me, contact info. I asked her to read my phone number on file. She read a number I did not recognize. I asked her to read my email. She read an email that was not mine. I asked about mailing address. She read an address that belonged to a mailbox service, not our home. I felt my jaw tighten. I did not show it. I asked when those changes happened. She gave me the date. It was close to the day Maris asked me to sign that so-called routine update. I asked the specialist how to lock down my access. She said I could open a new account in my name only and move my pay deposit. She said I could set new security steps. She said I could also file a formal notice that I disputed certain changes. I left with another folder, thicker than the first. I wrote the date on it too. I wrote the bank name. I wrote the word timeline again. That evening, I went to my workplace parking lot. I sat in my car and looked at the building. I had always liked my job because it was clear. A shipment is late or it is not. A route works or it does not. People can argue, but the numbers settle it. I walked inside and asked to speak to HR. I did not tell my supervisor the full story. I said I needed to update personal information. HR was polite. The representative asked if I wanted to change my address. I told her yes. Then she said something that made me pause. She asked if I was sure, because the address on file had already been updated recently. I asked what it had been changed to. It was that same mailbox service address. HR said the update came from an online form. It looked authorized. It had my identifying details. It also had a phone number attached that did not belong to me. I asked if my pay deposit details had changed. HR checked and said yes, the account had been adjusted. She said the system showed a valid request. I did not blame HR. They did not create this. They were just a door that opens when the right code is typed. I told her I needed to correct it right away. I asked what the company needed to treat it as a potential identity issue. She gave me the steps. She said I should document it and submit a written statement. When I left HR, I sat in my car again and stared at my steering wheel. I thought about how much planning this took. Someone had been moving pieces while I was still trying to keep it civil. That was the line for me. It was not the public gathering. It was not the new camera. It was not even the lock. It was this. Someone used my personal details to redirect my work pay. Someone put a mask on my name and walked through systems that should have protected me. I did not feel loud emotions. I felt something like a switch. I stopped waiting for them to act like decent people. I stopped thinking my patience would soften them. I went to the library again. I opened my timeline document and added new dates. I added the county record date. I added the bank contact change date. I added the HR update date. I wrote them in a straight line. I wrote what happened and where. Then I started attaching proof to each entry. Not the proof itself, because I kept those papers in my folders, but I wrote where each item came from and how to request it again. That was when I realized something about myself. I had been trained for this without knowing it. My job is systems. My job is chain of custody. My job is tracing why something went wrong and proving it in a way that others accept. I had been doing that for companies for years. I had just never done it for my own life. I rented a storage unit that week. It was small. It smelled like dust and metal. I carried my remaining belongings there in quiet trips. Every box got a label. Not emotional labels. Practical labels, documents, electronics, work, photos, tools. In the back of the unit, I placed a plastic bin with folders. I did not open them there. I just placed them carefully and made a list on my phone of what was inside. I also started backing up messages. Not to trap anyone, not to play games, just to preserve what was said and when it was said. I saved screenshots into a dated folder. I saved emails the same way. I saved bank alerts. I saved HR notes. I kept it simple. Maris sent me another message 2 days later. She said I should stop making things complicated. She said Ronan had people who could handle this quickly, and I should accept what was offered. She said my life would be easier if I cooperated. I did not reply with emotion. I replied with a single sentence. I told her I would handle everything through the proper channels. Then I called Asha Mehta's office. I did not tell the receptionist a dramatic story. I asked for a consultation. I said it involved property, financial changes, and identity issues. I said I had dates and records. I said I wanted to do it correctly. After I hung up, I sat in my car outside the library and looked at my hands. They were not shaking. That surprised me. I was still sleeping in my car some nights. I was still wearing the same 2 jackets and rotating them. I was still eating diner food and gas station snacks. But inside my mind, things were getting organized. And once things are organized, they can be moved, they can be corrected, they can be repaired. I did not know yet what the full outcome would be. I did not know how deep Ronan's planning went. I did not know how far Maris was willing to go, but I knew one thing clearly. I was done being removed quietly. 2 days after I called Asha Mehta's office, I sat in a small waiting room with plain chairs and a water dispenser that made a soft humming sound. The walls had framed prints that looked like they came from the same catalog. Nothing tried to impress anyone. That made me feel calmer. When Asha came out, she did not rush. She did not speak like she was above my problem. She asked my name, then asked me to explain the timeline in simple steps. I told her I would not give a speech. I told her I had dates. I told her I had account changes, address changes, and property changes. I told her I had messages that showed coordination. I told her I wanted to fix it through the correct systems. Asha nodded and said that was the right starting point. She said I should keep my emotions for private moments, not for paperwork. She said the process listens to facts and sequence. She said we would focus on what can be proven and what can be requested. She asked me a few direct questions. She asked what I signed in the last 6 months. She asked who had access to my phone. She asked if my email passwords were shared. She asked if my employer had any record of my consent for the changes. I answered honestly. I told her I had been too trusting. I told her I had treated my home like a safe place. I told her I did not think my own identity details would be used like tools. Asha did not comment on my trust like it was weakness. She treated it like a gap in a system. She said gaps can be closed. Then she told me to stop contacting Maris directly, except for practical items, and only in writing. She said I should not go to the house again without a clear plan. She said every unplanned visit becomes a story someone else can twist. I asked her what I should do next. She said we would do 3 things at once, but quietly. She said we would request records the right way, correct my employment and banking access, and prepare formal notices that I disputed certain changes. She did not show me any finished papers. She only described the steps in simple language. She also told me something that surprised me. She said people like Ronan often move fast because they expect no resistance. She said when calm resistance appears, they often become sloppy. She said I should not warn them. When I left her office, I did not feel excited. I felt steady. There is a difference. Excitement comes from fantasy. Steadiness comes from a plan. That afternoon, I went to my workplace again and asked HR for written confirmation of the recent changes on my file. The HR representative printed a summary of the update history and stamped it. She was careful with her words. She did not accuse anyone. She just confirmed dates and methods. That was all I needed from her. I also changed my pay deposit to a new account in my name only. I asked for extra security steps. I asked for notes on my profile that any future changes must be confirmed in person. The HR representative said she could add a flag, but the best protection was me staying alert. On the way out, I saw my supervisor in the hallway. He asked if everything was okay. I told him I had personal issues and I was handling them properly. I did not explain more. I did not want gossip. I did not want sympathy. I wanted quiet space to work. That night, I sat in my car in the same motel lot and made a checklist on my phone. I listed every system that touched my life: bank accounts, credit accounts, employer file, email accounts, phone carrier, insurance, utilities, the house, the car. Each one got a line, each one got a date, each one got a status. I did not blame myself in that moment. I treated it like a warehouse audit. You do not cry over missing inventory. You check the chain and find where it went. The next morning, I went to the bank and asked to speak to a fraud specialist. That is how they described the role. The specialist's name was Dina Hall. She did not smile much, but she listened closely. I told Dina I believed my contact details were changed without my consent. I told her I believed transfers were made in a way that did not match my normal behavior. I told her I wanted a formal review. I asked what the bank could provide as part of that review. Dina asked for my identification. She asked a few security questions. Then she opened the account history and spoke in a calm, technical way. She said there were multiple profile updates close together. She said the changes were made through online access. She said the system recorded device types and access points, but that some details would require a deeper report. I asked if the bank could place additional restrictions on the account. Dina said yes, but she also said something important. She said if the account is joint, the bank has limits on what it can block without a legal basis. She said their job is to follow account rules, not personal relationships. I told her I understood. I asked what a legal basis looks like in her world. She said a formal dispute, a documented identity issue, or an official notice connected to property or separation processes. She spoke like she had seen this pattern before, but she did not say it out loud. I left the bank with a list of what the bank could provide and what I needed to request through formal channels. Again, I did not wave papers around. I tucked them into my folder and wrote the date on the cover when I returned to the car. From there, I went to the library and printed my timeline document. Not because it was finished, but because I wanted a physical copy to mark. I sat at a table and used a pen to circle dates that clustered together. I drew arrows between events. I wrote short notes in the margins. Address change, bank profile update, employer profile update, house record change, message that used the words proper process, message that mentioned Ronan handling things. When I looked at those circles and arrows, I saw something I did not want to see. It was not chaos. It was sequence. Maris did not wake up one morning and suddenly decide to move my whole life. This had steps. Someone planned those steps. Someone knew which doors to open and which buttons to press. Someone knew which words would keep me quiet. That night, Tomas met me again at the diner. He slid into the booth across from me and asked if I ate anything that day. I told him I had coffee and a sandwich. He shook his head and told me to order something warm. He did not try to fix my life. He tried to keep me functioning. When the food arrived, I told him what I learned. I told him about the address changes. I told him about the limits of a joint account. I told him about the property record showing a business name attached. Tomas listened, then asked me a question that sounded simple but mattered. He asked who in the family was cheering this on. I thought about it. I said some family members avoided me. Some acted like I had failed a test. Some spoke about Maris like she was brave. Some spoke about Ronan like he was a savior. No one asked me what happened in detail. They only repeated what they had heard. Tomas said that means the story is already moving without me. He said if I want my side to exist in the real world, it needs to exist in the places that count. He said that means records, not arguments. I told him that is exactly what Asha said. Tomas gave a small nod, like that confirmed we were walking the right path. Over the next week, I did not speak to Maris in person at all. I kept messages short. I asked for my personal documents and a few items. She replied slowly, always with the same tone. She said I would get my things later. She said I should stop making it difficult. She said Ronan was being generous. She said I should be thankful I would not be left with nothing. That last line was meant to break me. It did not. It showed me her mindset. It showed me she believed I had no leverage. I asked Thomas to drive with me one afternoon to the storage unit. I wanted a witness for my own safety and my own memory. I opened the unit, showed him my labeled boxes, and showed him the folders bin without opening it. I told him I was building an archive, not a revenge project. He said that was smart. Then we drove past the house, not to approach it, just to see it. A different vehicle was in the driveway, a shiny one. The new camera was still there. Curtains were drawn in the front room, but I saw movement again. I saw a silhouette near the window. I kept driving. A few days later, a family group message thread lit up on my phone. I had muted it, but I still checked it once a day for practical reasons. In the thread, a cousin posted about a fresh start dinner at a restaurant the following weekend. The message used cheerful words. It said everyone should come support Maris. It did not say my name. Someone replied with a picture of a private room reservation. Someone else replied with a heart emoji. Another person said Ronan really stepped up. Another said it was good Maris finally chose herself. I stared at the screen and felt a tight pressure behind my ribs. Not rage, something like being erased while still breathing. I did not respond in the thread. I took a screenshot and saved it into my dated folder. Then I turned my phone face down on the table and sat still for a moment. That restaurant dinner was not a private meal. It was an announcement. It was a public performance where they could shape the story again, in front of people who would repeat it later. If I walked into that room unprepared, I would become the problem in their story. So I did not plan to walk into that room. Instead, I met Asha again. This time, I did not bring emotion. I brought sequence. I told her about the planned dinner. I told her about the way Maris and Ronan were using public moments to lock in their version of events. Asha said that was common. She said the goal of those events is not truth. The goal is social pressure. She said we would not fight social pressure with social pressure. She said we would place everything in the channels that cannot be smiled away. She said my job was to stay calm, keep collecting, and avoid giving them anything messy to point at. Before I left, she reminded me of one more thing. She said I should expect more arrogance from them as time passes. She said people who think they already won often show their hand. She said I should keep my eyes open. That night, I sat in my car again and opened my timeline document. I added a new entry for the restaurant dinner. I wrote one sentence, public narrative event scheduled. Then I made a second list. It was not a list of fantasies. It was a list of positions. Where am I vulnerable? Where am I protected? Which systems can I enter calmly? Which doors require a formal step? Which records can be requested again, even if someone hides the first copy? By the time I closed my laptop, the parking lot was quiet. The motel sign buzzed softly in the distance. My life still looked small from the outside. A man in a car, a bag in the back seat, a phone with alerts. But inside, things were lining up. I was not chasing them anymore. I was building a path that leads to places where stories do not win. Only records do. The week after my second meeting with Asha, my life became a checklist. I did not try to win anyone back. I did not try to explain myself in family messages. I stopped thinking about what sounded fair and started focusing on what could be verified. Every morning before work, I would sit in my car with a notebook and write 3 tasks that protected my identity and my access. Then I would do them in order. At my job, I kept my head down and did my work like normal. I did not want my personal situation to become workplace entertainment. I updated my pay deposit again in person. I added extra security steps to my employee profile. I asked HR to note that any future changes had to be confirmed face-to-face. The representative did not ask why. She just nodded and typed. That felt strange in a good way. It reminded me that some systems do not care about family power. They care about procedure. After work, I rotated between the bank, the library, and Asha's office. At the bank, Dina helped me file formal disputes and requests for detailed records. I did not wave my phone around or tell a dramatic story. I spoke in short sentences and asked for the next step. Dina spoke the same way. She explained what the bank could do quickly and what would take time. She told me which requests needed written follow-up. She told me what to expect from internal reviews. Every time I left, I wrote the date on my folder and noted exactly who I spoke to and what they said. At the library, I kept building my timeline. I added only facts. If I did not know something for sure, I left it blank and wrote a question mark. I saved screenshots with dates in the file name. I backed up messages into folders that matched my timeline entries. I did not do this to play games. I did it because I had learned a hard lesson. If you cannot show it, it did not happen in the eyes of a system. Asha kept me focused on boundaries. She told me not to drift into arguments. She told me not to show up at the house. She told me to avoid any situation where Maris and Ronan could claim I was unstable or disruptive. She said their strength was social pressure. My strength was my discipline. I also took practical steps that felt small but mattered. I changed passwords on every account I could think of. I turned on extra verification. I requested copies of credit reports and placed alerts where possible. I moved my important mail to a secure address that only I controlled. I opened a small safe deposit box for the most important items because a storage unit is still a public place in its own way. I did not want my life in a box that someone else could access with the right story. During all of this, Maris kept sending messages that sounded calm but carried a sharp edge. She told me Ronan was being fair and I should accept it. She said I was making things harder than they needed to be. She said I should stop embarrassing myself by chasing details. She said people were talking and I was hurting my own reputation. I answered only when necessary and only in writing. I kept my words short. I told her I would handle everything properly and through the correct channels. I asked again for my personal documents. I asked for a short list of items from my home office. She replied that she would get to it when she had time. That word, time, became a tool for her. It meant she controlled the pace. It meant I should wait. It meant I should stay confused long enough for new normal to settle in. I did not wait. One evening, Tomas met me at the diner and slid into the booth like he always did, quiet and steady. He asked me if I had a plan for a place to sleep that was not my car. I told him I was saving for a small room and I was keeping my focus on the larger issues first. He did not like that answer, but he did not push. He just told me to keep my body working while my mind worked. He told me to eat a real meal. He told me to drink water. He told me I could not think clearly if I was running on fumes. He also told me something else. He said family group chats can become a courtroom without rules. He said I should treat them like noise. He said if anyone truly cared, they would call me directly and ask real questions. The next day, the family thread proved his point. Someone posted a cheerful message about a fresh start dinner for Maris. They shared a reservation screenshot. People replied with supportive lines and little symbols. No one said my name, not even once. It was like I had never existed in that marriage, only in the bills. I did not respond. I took a screenshot and saved it. Then I muted the thread again. That same week, something else changed the air. A cousin called me directly. She did not sound excited. She sounded careful. She said there had been a serious highway incident involving Ronan. She said the family was shaken. She said details were still moving around, but the result was final. She spoke in soft words, like she was afraid to say too much. I asked a few simple questions. Where did it happen? When did it happen? Who confirmed it? She gave me what she knew, then she said something that made my stomach tighten. She said people were already discussing what happens next, as if the outcome was a prize to divide. After the call, I sat in my car in the motel lot and stared at the steering wheel again, the same way I had after the bank alert. Not because I felt sorry for Ronan, not because I felt triumph. I felt something colder and cleaner than that. I felt the ground shifting under the story Maris and Ronan built. Ronan had been the loud engine behind the whole situation. He had money, influence, and a voice people listened to. If he was no longer here, there were going to be gaps. There were going to be questions. There were going to attaching to missing pieces. I told Asha about the call at our next meeting. She did not react emotionally. She asked dates and sources. She asked if anyone had contacted me officially about anything connected to Ronan. I told her no. She told me to stay quiet, keep my routines, and wait for formal contact. She said when money and paperwork are involved, formal contact always comes. For the next 2 weeks, nothing happened on the surface. Maris stayed quiet except for short messages about me moving on. Family members posted vague lines about strength and new chapters. Someone posted a photo of Maris at a nice restaurant with people I recognized from Ronan's circle. She looked polished and composed. She looked like she was already placing herself into a new role. I kept working. I kept documenting. I kept sleeping in my car some nights and in a cheap room other nights when I could afford it. I kept my suit pressed in a garment bag because I had learned that being taken seriously often starts with looking prepared, even when you feel tired. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang from an unknown number. I was in the library, I had my timeline open, I had a folder on the table beside me. When the phone buzzed, I felt the same tightness I felt in the driveway the night Maris left. But I did not freeze. I answered. A calm voice introduced herself as Kendra Voss. She said she was an insurance investigator assigned to a policy connected to Ronan. She said she needed to confirm my identity and ask a few procedural questions. She did not sound dramatic. She sounded like a person who writes files all day and follows steps. I asked how she got my number, because I wanted that noted. She said she used publicly available records and cross-checks. She said my number had been harder to confirm because my contact information had been altered in multiple systems. She said that, and then she paused like she wanted me to understand what that implied without saying it. She asked if I could meet in person. I asked where. She gave me an address, an insurance company office on a conference floor downtown. She offered times. I chose the earliest. Before the call ended, she told me one key fact in the same calm tone. She said a large life policy associated with Ronan listed me as the beneficiary, and it appeared it had not been updated. For a moment, I could not speak. Not because I was excited, but because it made no sense. Ronan did not do things by accident. Ronan did not forget details. Ronan did not leave loose ends that large. If my name was there, it meant something. If my name was there and Maris was acting so confident, it meant she believed she could control the outcome anyway. I asked Kendra to repeat what she said, just to be sure I heard it correctly. She repeated it without changing her voice. Then she added that her job was to verify the record, confirm the timeline, and identify any irregular activity connected to the policy and related systems. I told her I understood. I told her I would be there. I asked what I should bring. She said identification and any relevant records I believed were connected to identity changes, financial changes, or contact changes. She said I did not need to argue with anyone. She said I just needed to provide facts. After the call, I sat at the library table and stared at my timeline document. I did not rush to tell Thomas. I did not tell Maris. I did not tell family. I did not post anything. I did not even allow myself to imagine outcomes. I opened my notes and wrote a short line with the date and time. I wrote Kendra's name. I wrote the meeting address. I wrote one sentence under it. Official contact has started. That evening, I met Asha and told her about the call. She listened without interruption. She asked me to repeat the words exactly as I remembered them. She asked if Kendra said anything about irregular patterns. I told her yes, in general terms. Asha nodded once and told me to do 2 things. First, she told me to stay calm and keep everything clean. She said no surprises, no arguments, no side conversations. Second, she told me to prepare for the meeting like it was a formal work audit. She said we would use the systems they respect. She said we would do it the right way. The next morning, I dressed in my suit and drove downtown early. I parked, sat in the car for a minute, and breathed slowly. My hands were steady. My mind felt quiet in a focused way. I walked into the building lobby and gave my name at the desk. The guard checked a list and handed me a visitor badge. The elevator ride up felt longer than it was. When the doors opened onto the conference floor, the hallway was bright and quiet, like a place designed to remove drama. A receptionist led me to a small conference room and asked me to wait. I sat down, placed my folder on the table, and looked at the empty chair across from me. I could hear faint office sounds beyond the door, keyboards, and distant voices, normal life continuing. I waited, calm and ready, for the meeting to begin. Kendra Voss came in with a slim laptop and a thick folder. She introduced herself again and asked me to confirm my identity with my ID and a few standard questions. Her voice stayed even. She said she did not take sides. She said she followed records. Asha Mehta arrived a minute later and sat beside me without making a show of it. She placed a clean binder on the table and a small notepad in front of her. She told Kendra we were ready. Kendra started by stating the basic issue. She said Ronan had a large life policy and that my name appeared as the beneficiary on the current record. She said the amount was $44.8 million. She said the company needed to verify that the beneficiary record was valid, that there was no improper pressure, and that the recent activity around the policy matched normal verification. She then explained the second problem. She said there was an attempted update close to the highway incident. She said the attempt did not match the usual pattern for verified changes. She said the signature format was inconsistent, the contact confirmation steps were irregular, and a notary entry appeared linked to scheduling that did not line up with Ronan's normal habits. Maris walked into the room right after that, as if she had been waiting outside. Her hair was perfect. Her coat looked expensive. She acted surprised to see me, but her eyes did not show surprise. She sat down like she belonged there and told Kendra she was the spouse and could help clarify everything. Kendra did not argue. She simply said she needed facts, not titles. She asked Maris to explain why an update attempt happened so close to the incident and why my name remained the active beneficiary. Maris said Ronan had meant to correct it. She said he told her he wanted to make things right. She said the only reason my name was still there was because paperwork can lag. She said I did not deserve it and that everyone knew it. Asha did not respond to the emotional part. She asked Kendra if she could confirm the exact date and time of the attempted update. Kendra read it out from her screen. Asha nodded once and opened our binder. This was the first time I placed the full record on a table for someone who could act on it. Asha slid forward a timeline summary with dates that matched Kendra's. She did not call it a story, she called it a sequence. She showed the property record change date, the bank profile change date, and the employer profile change date. She showed the mailbox service address that appeared across systems. She showed that my phone number and email were replaced in multiple places close together. Kendra's posture changed slightly. She leaned in and asked how we obtained the dates. Asha said we requested them from the institutions using standard channels. She said each item could be re-verified directly by the insurer's legal team. Kendra then asked me why I did not respond earlier if changes were happening. I told her I had tried to keep things civil at first. I told her I only understood the scope after my access began to shift. I told her I stopped arguing and started documenting. Maris tried to redirect the conversation. She said I was always controlling with paperwork. She said I was trying to punish her for leaving. She said I was bitter and making accusations because I had been replaced. Asha kept her voice flat and asked Maris one question at a time. She asked why Maris used a mailbox service address for my profile updates. Maris said it was for privacy. Asha asked why my employer file was altered from an online form, not in person. Maris said she thought she was helping me. Asha asked why my bank contact number was replaced with a number that did not belong to me. Maris said she did not know. Kendra asked to see any evidence that Ronan intended to change the beneficiary to Maris through verified channels. Maris said it was discussed privately. Kendra said private discussions do not change records. Kendra then brought in the insurer's compliance counsel, a quiet man who introduced himself and sat near the door. He said the policy could not move forward until the irregular update attempt was resolved. He said the company would request certified records from the bank, the county office, and my employer. He said any payout process would be paused while the verification steps ran. Maris's face shifted for the first time. She asked how long the pause would be. The counsel said there was no shortcut for integrity checks. Asha placed one final document on the table, face down at first, then turned it so Kendra could read the header. It was a formal dispute notice tied to identity changes and asset movement, prepared for institutional review. Asha said it did not ask the insurer to pick a winner. It asked the insurer to follow the same standard they use when a change attempt looks irregular. Kendra looked at it, then looked at me. She said the timeline alignment was too tight to ignore. She said Maris would be contacted through official channels for verification questions. She said all parties should avoid direct contact while the review ran. Maris stood up quickly and said this was unfair. She said I was nobody now and I should stop interfering. Kendra did not react. She simply repeated that the record was paused and the next steps were mandatory. I picked up my folder, nodded once, and walked out with Asha. Behind us, the conference room stayed quiet. Not because anyone agreed, but because the system had taken control of the outcome.